Good afternoon and welcome to our first January 2011 in-service. Today we have the pleasure of having Ms. Cynthia Jeffers, who's the supervisor of the South Carolina Department of Social Services Area for Adoption. Ms. Jeffers will be here to answer questions about what role adoption plays for the children in foster care. So without any further ado, Ms. Cynthia Jeffers.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. I am, as he said, the supervisor in Region 2 Adoption. I like what I do, I love what I do, and I am an adoptive mom. I'm an adoptive mother of 3, and there are over 30 adopted children in my family. So I really like what I do. I like working with my passion is recruitment for adoptive parents and finding homes for teens. That's really what I like, because they are the ones that have been left in the system, it seems sometimes, the longest. Because when people come in, usually when prospective adoptive parents come in, they're looking for maybe infants or toddlers, and some of our teens or now tweens kind of get overlooked. So this is what I like to do. I'm from New York. But I was a CASA worker when I was in New York. I liked what I did. You know, I did this because CASA workers, CASA volunteers, you are the voice for the children that you serve. And they need it. You know, social workers, the lawyers don't necessarily have the time, because they have so many other things to do. They don't have the time to concentrate on just the children and knowing exactly what they want. So you are, and I think in many of your recruitment advertisements is that you are the voice, you are the heroes, the everyday heroes for the children that are in care, and you speak for them. What I'm going to tell you about is just once the children, you know how the children come into foster care, you know what happens to them when they're in foster care. But then there comes a time when reunification, foster care is all about reunification, and they work hard, the workers work diligently to try to get the families to get back together again, get the children back into the homes, because that's really important. But there comes a time in some of the homes when children can't be returned home, and there's no family maybe that steps up and take the children. Therefore, families go down and TPR is done, termination of parental right is done, and then the children come to foster care. I mean to adoption, from foster care into adoption. And when they come into adoption, that is where we step in. It is the job of the adoption workers to try to make the best match, to try to find the best home for the children. And it is a process, and the process usually is when the children come in, when we get a file, and foster care calls and said they're going to turn a case over to us because it's going to be an adoption rather than reunification. What we do is they assess the case to make sure this is what's going to happen, to make sure that everything has been done that can possibly be done in foster care. Then they take it, the worker, the first thing she does is, or he would do, is go out, visit with the child. It's very important to go see the child, talk to the child, and they make numerous visits to the child before we even decide, like, oh, we got this great family. That's not the first thing. The first thing is to find out about the child, read the file, go visit the child. The worker makes several visits to find out where the child is, what they're doing, how they're doing in school. We visit the schools, we visit whatever it is. And then they will sit down and they'll come back with the supervisor. We do a staffing, the workers will do a staffing with the supervisor and make a decision about, okay, what's the next step? Is this child ready for adoption? Somebody has to talk to this child about adoption. What does this child think about adoption? What does the child want? So those are the first steps before we do anything else. Once that's done, once it's established that the child is ready for adoption and we're ready to make a move, they will start to look for a family. There's we have in my office, we have the children's workers, and then we have family workers. I'm a supervisor for the family unit and recruitment. So they will, we get the families in, they have the children in, and somewhere in between we try to make a match. Parents will come in, people will come in wanting to parent a child. So, or children, we have a lot of SIB groups, which you know. So then what happens is we will sit down, the children's worker will say, I have, let's say a family, I have these 2 children. They, one might have some challenges or, whatever the circumstances is. And they will talk to the children's, or the family workers, and they will find out, do you have a family that will accept this, and they will we go down the list. It's a process. We go down the list and we try to make a decision about how, what a child needs and how best we can match these 2 things. Once we do that, if all of a sudden the children's worker says, this family sounds great, this family, whatever it is, once that process is done, then what we do is, let's say the children's worker decides that we have 3 family workers in Region 2. So the one of the children's workers may say, I have 6 families that I really, really like that seem like they're going to make a match for them. The children's worker will take the families, go over it, look at it, review it. She will pick out the families that she feels are best match these children's background. So let's say out of the 6, she puts 3 that are just perfect. Then we will have a placement committee, because the decision is not hers alone or his alone. It has to be a committee. So it's a committee of 5 or 6 people. Some of the supervisors and the family and the other workers will come in. She will talk about the children. She'll tell us all about the children and the families that they've chosen. And in that placement, it's called a placement committee. In that placement committee, it has to come out as a unanimous decision. They sit down, they discuss it. We've had meetings, we've had committees, placement committees, where it's been just a few minutes because it's almost like, oh, this is so obvious, this is just the perfect match. Or it may come out that it might be hours trying to decide to make sure that, because it's all in the best interest of the child, so trying to decide that this would be a great match for a child. We have also come out and no decision has been made at all, because it is unanimous, and there might be a few things. Maybe the children's worker has to go out and say, well, let me find out about some things that the families are curious about. So they go back and do that. But if a family is selected out of that thing, out of the placement committee, the family worker will go back, call that family, and present to the family, you have been chosen for the SIB group of, 2, and tell them something about the children on the phone. And then they will be invited in, the family will be invited in. If they feel that I'd like to go on, find out some more information about these children, they will be invited in for what we call a presentation. And at that time, when they come in for the presentation, the family comes in, every single thing that's in the file that we have about that child will be presented to the family. Everything that foster care has ever given us, all the work that we've done, everything is gone over, and we'll sit down for the presentation. And when the family comes, and usually I always say, when the family comes in, if it's 25 pages, if it's a newborn, a Daniel's Law baby, or a newborn, it might be only a few pages, but if the children have been in care for a while, and it's more than one child, each child is presented, and if it's 25 pages, you will be there all day, because we read you 25 pages. We don't hand them like a presentation package and tell them, you could flip through it and look at it, and if you have any questions, call us. We don't do that. We sit down and we read it. We read every single page to them, answer whatever questions they may have. We go over everything, and they have to sign each page of each copy, so that at some point later on they can't say, well, you never told me this. We can say, not only did we tell you, we read it, and here's the copy. Here, and you signed it. Exactly right. So we would do that. Then at that time, and we don't ask them to give us a decision at that time. We wouldn't even accept a decision at that time. We want them to take it home, because everybody signs confidentiality papers. We want them to take it home, check with their pediatrician, check with anyone they want to check with, look up some of the terminology, look up some of the, if there's challenges or anything, look everything up and find out. Then call us back in a few days or week and let us know what your decision is about whether you want to, move ahead or not. Sometimes we've had people that says, oh, yes, I'm ready to do it. One couple even told us, well, if you don't take my answer now, I'm going to go into the parking lot and I'll call you. And we said, no, we won't even take that. We won't even take that. What we want you to do is to go home and really read it and make a decision, because what we're trying to do is make a decision. It's a commitment. It's a lifelong, thing that you're going into. This is not like, it's not like you bring it home for 30 days, and then if you don't like it, you bring it, you can exchange it. It's not like that. So we want the decision that you make, we want to be a sound decision for you. If, when we get a call back and someone says, well, yes, I'm very interested, then the next thing we do is we set up a meeting with the children. We do not tell, especially our toddlers and the infants. Infants is, oh my gosh, infants is an immediate thing. So that's like we call the parent up and we'll tell the parent, we have this baby, we need you to come down, and we'll do a presentation to them right there in the office, right there at that moment. And then we'll do the same thing, we go over everything. But usually our babies, our newborns, Daniel's little baby, they're accepted immediately. And that's a 1, 2, 3 thing. But for the toddlers, and we don't tell them, you're going to meet your mommy, or there's a possibility. We don't tell them anything like that. They're just coming down to the office, and they're just meeting more people. They've been to our office. They know what it's like. So they'll come down to the office. The children usually go out to McDonald's or something. The family is able to take them out, or take them wherever, with the worker, just to go out for them to interact, to see, then they come back to the office, however long that is, they'll come back to the office. The children will go back to, the foster home they were in, and we do what we call a debriefing. We'll sit down and we'll ask the parents, what do you think? How did it feel? They're going to go home and you're going to talk about it, decide, make a decision, because we want you to, if you don't feel that it is what you want to do, we tell them, let us know. Say no. If you don't feel this is right for you, say no. We don't hold it against them. It's not like we're going to say, oh, well, that family turned down, these children, so therefore we'll never call them again. We don't. We want to know. Then, if a family turns down, we'll say, no, I don't think I can do this. We want to know why, so that we can add that into their file, so that we'll know exactly what it was that they did not feel was good for them. Maybe it wasn't down there, or maybe, we called, you said, you could take up to 2 kids, and we called you about 4, then we'll say, okay, we'll never call them for 4 again. But sometimes, somebody may say 2 children, and if we have a sib group of 3, we'll call them, because they'll say, okay, we'll do this. So we'll do that. If they feel that it's yes, we'll set up another meeting. Depending on the age of the child, will depend on the transition necessary that the children will go through before they move into a home with a family. The transition for our toddlers sometimes is instant. For our tweens and our teens, it could be instant, or it could be a long process. If they've been with a foster parent for a long time, but the foster parent wants to foster and doesn't want to adopt, then it might be a longer process. So we will work with them as long as it takes before the family, before the children in the family will get together. Once that happens, if the family decides after a few visits, we'll do a day visit, maybe a couple of day visits. Then they'll say, well, let's try an overnight. They'll do an overnight visit. They'll do a weekend visit. And then it's, you know, whatever it is. And then if the family says, well, usually our families will say, well, we don't want this anymore. We want our child to come home with us right now. And we'll do that. We'll sit down, we'll do paperwork and move the child into the home. Then the family will have the foster care worker, because the children are still in foster care. They'll have a foster care worker coming out. They have an adoption worker coming out every month to find out how it's going, find out whatever it is. They visit the schools, they talk to the children, they talk to, for the families, they talk to the families if they have any biological children. We talk to those children. We talk to everybody because we want it to be a good fit. We don't want disruptions. We want, because our children in the system have already had disruptions. They've already had things happen to them. They don't want to go through that anymore. So what they do is we want to make sure it is just perfect when it happens. If we see a problem, if we see someone doesn't seem like they're relating or something like that, we sit down, we talk to them, we want to find out, because as far as we're concerned, these are our children. And we want the best for our children. So sometimes sometimes parents feel, you know, I've waited for a long time. I'm really, you know, you haven't called me. I've been approved for the last 5 months and you haven't called me, you know. But we said what we're trying to do is find absolutely the best, you know, for them. They advocate for themselves. They go online. They look at our seedlings. They look at they go on Adopt Us Kids. They go on the Heart Gallery. They're constantly advocating for themselves. And we are, you know, we're going over the applications, we're going over the home studies to make sure that what we do is do what's right for the children. And once they're in, we don't even let them start to do the adoption process. It's not like a child will move into a home and then we say, okay, so now next thing is going to court. We don't allow that for 6 months. We give them time to, not that you're going to say, well, no, it's not working out, take this child back. We're going to be working, once the child's in your home, it's, you know, for all intents and purposes, this is your child is there. But what we want to do is we want you to find out everything there is. We want you to know everything. We want to find out everything because, you know, somebody might say, well, this child is just perfect and everything is fine. You know, the foster mothers, you know, I just love these children, everything is great. And then you get the child in and you might find, well, maybe they're slow here, or they, you know, have a hearing problem, or, you know, they may have asthma and wasn't discovered. All of these things we want you to find out, to have everything down, and it's documented, and we try to address those issues and get the right medical, you know, help and do everything there is to do. And then after 6 months, they'll say, well, we want to go. And they start going for finalization and doing the paperwork and getting the dockets, and then the adoption is final. But it is a process. It is not we just throw kids, you know, into a home, but that it's a process that we go through. Yes, we've had some disruptions, but they have been few, because they have to go through so much. And we explain it, and the parents, the foster parents have to, I mean, the prospective adoptive parents have to go through training, just like foster parents, they have to go through the training. We do have classes that they go through to tell them, and we tell them, and in the training, we tell them truly the worst case scenario. And I always say, when I go to the trainings, I have a training, when I go sit in the training, sometimes I'm saying, you know, I said, I don't know if I'd have heard all this stuff, if I would have adopted, you know, like 20-something years ago. But we do it because we want you to be aware. We want the foster parents and the adoptive parents to be aware. And as you know, like 65-75% of our foster parents are our adoptive parents. So it is really, really good. Now, questions, ladies?
You When you've got a foster family that wants to adopt the family that they've been fostering,
Mhm.
how does that change the process you just got finished describing?
When a foster parent, what usually happens is when the plan for the child changes from reunification to adoption, the foster parent is notified and they're asked if they would be interested in adopting the child. They're asked several times. If they say that they are, we take out what we call a 90-day letter, because we have to ask them first. We'll take out a 90-day letter. The 90-day letter tells them that explains to them that the plan has changed. These children are going to be adopted, and if they're interested, this is what they have to do. So they have to do paperwork. If they're our foster parents, if they're DSS foster parents, there's a lot of things that we can get from the from the foster care office, their identifications and all that stuff. But they have to fill out paperwork. They have to go. We go over the home study. We will do a home study. We do everything that the other person will have to do. Some of the papers are already there. We still do stuff. They might have a home study, but it might not be an adoption home study. And the adoption home study is very thorough. And it's, so we go through a lot of stuff. And we want to make sure that, yes, you've been a foster parent. Yes, you've been taking care of these children. But now this is, in adopting them, this is like a whole different dynamics. This child is going to be yours, and it's not going to be, it's going to be there. And a lot of the things that you get as a foster parent might stop. So we want you to be aware of it, that you can handle these things. And so we go through that. They have to go through the same process. Yeah.
What kind of money, fees, payments, subsidies are involved?
When in adoption, I do the orientations. You guys are gonna have to go to one of my orientations. So I do the orientations. Adoption processes. Everything we pay for the home study. DSS pays for the home study, which is expensive. We pay for the fingerprints. We pay for everything. We pay for you get the fingerprints. We pay for the DHEC inspection. We pay for the fire inspection. We pay for everything. The only thing that costs a prospective adoptive family anything is the medical. They have to go. Everyone in the house has to have a medical done. That's the only thing that costs them. Even when it comes down to finalization, DSS will pay up to $1,500 for the finalization. We pay for everything. It doesn't cost the family anything except for the medicals.
So is there any money that goes to the family during this process?
Well, the only thing is right now we still have what we call an adoption subsidy. It is not what they get as foster parents. It's a subsidy. The subsidy is negotiated when they come in and they say, well, we're going to, we're ready to adopt, and we want to do this. Well, then they will, because when a child goes right into their home, let's say a child goes right into, they decide that they want this child, and the child goes into a home, whatever the foster parent is getting will be transferred to them. So they will, and for all intents and purposes, they are foster parents, not the foster parents that you can call up in the middle of the night and say, we have a child waiting for you. They're not that. They're an adoption foster parent. So they will have the child they'll foster. Once they make the decision that we're going to sit down and we're going to, we want to adopt this child and we're going to do a pre-adoption, sign pre-adoption papers, then we negotiate an adoption subsidy. And at that time, they will get, adoption subsidy that will be with the child until the child is 18. If it's an older child, it's usually, I think it's still at 21, because they'll be in school, if they go to college or something like that, yeah. But they'll have an adoption subsidy. There's a medical, they maintain their Medicaid, the children maintain that. We always encourage them to. They make that secondary, of course, but they have that. And that's the only subsidy that we have. There's post-adoption services, for the parents. It's not like once the adoption is finalized, we'll say, don't ever call us again, because we, you know, if you need help, if they need services, we are able to provide them with services or direct them to the right places. And if they adopt, we usually call them back again.
But for all intended purposes, if a child is in foster care, they are monitored on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
DSS, whoever's involved in that child's case. But once they're adopted, that monitoring kind of goes away.
Yeah, it does, because what you look at it like this: once a child is adopted, they're your child.
Mm-hmm.
So DSS is not involved. You don't have to worry about DSS